Welcome to Best Year Ever January Edition evening broadcast with Spastique, and this is a monthly goal-setting workshop where we're going to talk about how to set goals, why to set goals, and how it all works. This little graphic that you see on the video page pretty much describes the whole process. It's know what you want and why you want it, then how do you get it, and lastly ask what is stopping you mentally. And we're going to cover all these things, but first we need to cover the foundation of everything. And that is a giant enchilada that we need to devour. So let's see where to begin. I guess I can go the traditional route and say that anyone who masters any area of life does more in that area of life than someone who doesn't master it. Like, how many people out there do you think have story ideas, as one example?
Not that many. List.
Yep. Like, so many people have ideas for stories, but how many people actually go out there and write the stories and actually publish them?
Not, less than 50%?
Less than 10%.
Dang, it's so close.
There are so many people.
I was about to say less than 5.
Yep. Because there are so many people out there who have great ideas, but they never do anything about them. And if you want to get more done in any area of life, you simply make more decisions, take more actions in that area of life. In fact, one thing that got me really far in the Walfus community is that I have done like so many things administratively, so many things like innovating the Walfus and stuff, then a lot of people are like, oh, Spastique's hogging the spotlight, but I keep inviting people. Do as much as I do, and you get the same reactions and the same actions that I get. But the problem is, so many people are held back by fears and disappointments and boredom that they never take as many decisions as the other person. And this goes to any area of life, whether it be sports, whether it be school. Like, if you look at someone who studies a lot and studies in the right areas, compared to someone who spends the whole weekend partying and playing games, you'll notice there's a large grade difference as well. Or in sports, someone who trains every single day versus someone who only trains for the season, that person who trains every day is likely going to have the better physical record as well as the better sports record. Or if you look in business, someone who look at the businesses who regularly train their staff in the right things as opposed to the ones that only maintain the business by just cutting out the bottom line. It all depends on how many more actions do you take than everyone else. Like, another great example is Mac. It doesn't matter what you think of them, haven't been many companies out there that dedicate themselves to making, back in the day, there weren't any dedicated music players, but then iPod ended up streamlining that, then the smartphones. The iPhones, back in the day, there were, tablets and no, they weren't called smartphones. It was pocket PCs back then. But then Mac decided, you know what, let's go to the next level. Nobody's innovating this. And Vamoosh, they ended up being copied by everyone else. Now we have Windows phones and Android phones. Or another example is, what are they called? Dyson. No one innovated the vacuum in so many years. Then Dyson came along and made all these state-of-the-art vacuums and hand dryers. Dyson innovated the hand dryer. Like, who here has seen the Dyson Airblade if they've ever been to a public restroom lately?
I haven't. Oh, I've seen those so many times. I'm not too fond of them.
Well, what about those things that don't innovate that much, like calculator?
Well, they just stay where they are. But if someone were to make the better calculator, I guarantee you that they would probably see business booming. But these days, we have all these calculator apps on our phones that it's becoming less and less of a demand on the calculator industry. Like, what does not... Yes?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, what does not evolve eventually dies. Like, depending on whether or not you believe in natural selection, there is like a trend in, like, if you put a penguin out in the desert, is that penguin going to survive?
Nope. Obviously.
And if you put a leopard out in Antarctica, is that leopard going to survive?
Hell no.
Again, not likely.
Heck no.
And there you go. Another great example is Blockbuster. Back in the day, everyone would go to Blockbuster and rent their videos, and they would go back and return them. But then a little thing called Netflix came along, where you could just download videos from the internet and watch them on your home TV. And as a result, no one was going to Blockbuster, and even Redbox was like a corner store Blockbuster. And the demand on Blockbuster grew less and less until Blockbuster became outdated. The same applies to the horse and the car. Back in the day, everyone used to ride on horses until those fangled horseless carriages came along, and people were like, Balderdash, cars are only a trend. We need to build a better horse. But they built the better car. Welcome, Diz. They built the better car, and as a result, horses ended up becoming more of a novelty than a mode of transportation.
That actually leads to a question that the question I was trying to ask. This is probably not the best of examples, but I watched one of Game Theory's videos by MatPat, and there was an argument that in the gaming community, what people really want isn't change. Like, they talked about how new games try to offer some form of innovation, but a lot of people are buying the same game over and over again, like Call of Duty, and I have to ask, what happens if you have this sort of stagnation?
It's mainly the change that people want. Like, some people try to change things willy-nilly just to upset the status quo, but then there's people out there that make changes because people say, I'm getting tired of blank and blank. In fact, funny you mentioned Call of Duty, because Call of Duty originally changed to Modern Warfare back when in the original Call of Duties 1, 2, and 3 were World War II games, and everyone said, this is a Medal of Honor ripoff. We've had so many World War II games that there have been more Nazis killed in these games than in the actual World War II. And before you know it, the guys who made Modern Warfare were like, wait a minute, we have all these World War II games. What if we made a war game that took place in the modern era? And people are like, are you crazy? I mean, well, we have Battlefield and the, let's see, Operation Flashpoint and Ghost Recon. Who wants like a modern warfare game? And they're like, but that's the thing. In these World War II games, we have these dramatic stories, and all the other games is nothing but realistic comeback. What if we made like a playable Michael Bay film? And people are like, oh, this could be interesting. And they took influences, it looks like, from Metal Gear Solid and the other games where you have, like, scenes that you can, like, controllable helplessness and stuff. And when people saw the original Modern Warfare, especially that scene with the nuclear strike, people were floored. I was there when the original Modern Warfare came out, and people were stunned. They're like, holy shit, this looks like the end of World War II shooter games. And then Modern Warfare 2 came out, where the opening scene has a bunch of terrorists gunning down an airport. Then you're fighting in the streets of America, then watching Washington, D.C. burning in flames of World War III. That was the nail in the coffin to World War II shooters. And people were trying to experiment with, like, Wolfenstein took the World War II shooter, but then added monsters and science fiction tech and stuff. But that was a change that nobody wanted. It was only after they seriously, like, looked at things and went, okay, we need a serious 180, that's when the innovation happened. Does that make sense?
I guess.
I was asking Captain Face since it was his question.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Still there, Captain?
Yeah, I am. I wasn't trying to derail the subject. I was just asking what happens when people don't necessarily want the change, or rather they stay in the same loop.
They don't know if they want the change until they experience the change.
Cherno, you might want to remember that he was asking me the question, and I have the answer here. But anyway, let's see. But yes, this is relevant to the topic because, what was I thinking about? There are some people out there that don't want to change things, or they try changing things and something doesn't work out. But you also have to remember, if something doesn't work out, you gotta ask, is this the right change? Because some people think, like, let's say someone tries to go on a diet by starving themselves. That is, it's a change, but it's not a good change. I've tried that myself in the past, and I ended up gaining the weight back and feeling even worse. I remember there was one week where I decided to watch all my calories, and I was starving to death the whole week until one day I snapped, went down to the local Joe's Crab Shack, had a giant bucket of crab legs, a huge thing of fries, and I drank so many Dr. Peppers that day I couldn't even count. And I ended up feeling better because the change was like I was no longer changing into something that was painful. But now I weigh 40 pounds less because I found a better way to go about changing, mainly changing my diet to where I'm eating the right greens and getting the right vitamins and getting the right exercise. So now I'm not starving myself. I'm not like putting too much pain into my exercise. This is like that modern warfare change as opposed to the Wolfenstein kind of change. And it applies for every area of life because there are some areas where you... let's see, some people in relationships go the pickup artist route. They can't get dates the normal way, so they think, okay, I'm going to learn speed seduction techniques. I'm going to learn neurolinguistic programming, sleight of mouth patterns. And then they end up like doing these really unnatural patterns on people, and that doesn't work either. When it's really a balance of everything, where you need to practice empathy and listening skills. And it's a whole entire array of things that you have to learn. Now, oh yes, it is?
I'm saying in response.
Okay. So, let's see. But anyway, if you make enough decisions in an area, then you start to move forward. But what keeps people from making decisions? I'll give you a hint. It's the same thing that keeps animals from... rushing into fire or attacking predators they know they can't fight.
Fear?
Close. Fear of what, though? Think critically here.
Fear of trying?
Instinct.
Nope, it's a very simple answer. It's pleasure and pain. All animals want to avoid pain, and all animals want to gain pleasure, but the thing is, we all want to avoid pain more than we want to get pleasure. If you've you notice how animals, if they're in the middle of mating, will run away from an animal trying to kill them, and that's why you never see animals mating get attacked by an animal and say, "Hey, you mind? We're kind of busy here." But of course...
Yeah, no. They would run.
Yep. But just as every animal has different things that cause pain and different things that cause pleasure, every single human has a different model of the world, so to speak, as to what they think causes pain and what causes pleasure. Some people really like rap music because they like the beats, they like the lyrics, they like the lyricism, they like how all the rappers are belting out these words at like supersonic speeds. And other people say, oh, it's promoting like some really low culture. It's nothing but objectifying women and talking about guns and hoes and women and hoes. And depending on what you think about those kinds of things will determine whether you like rap music or not. Or the same with video games. Some people play like shooter games because they like the hunt of the other players, or all the action, all the running away, all the shooting and dodging, all the strategy, all the teamwork involved. They love the camaraderie of fighting alongside their friends and battling the enemy for whatever it means to them, for glory, for victory, for whatever it means to them. Where other people say it's murder simulators. It's going to train you to be more violent and aggressive. Again, that will all determine whether or not you're going to want to play video games or not.
Indeed so.
Yep. And going a bit deeper, there are different beliefs, rules, and values and such that you have determining whether or not you are actually going to, like, why you tie the pleasure and pain to things. Like, probably the most dangerous thing that can happen to you is if you tie pain to learning. If you tie pain to learning, how do you think someone is going to be able to learn a new skill if every time they try to learn something it means failure or rejection, some kind of negative value like that?
I'll tell you one thing, it gets in the way, so most likely they won't.
Yep.
Yeah.
What was that, Mario Sonic Gamer?
I was saying that they won't learn because basically they're just in too much pain to learn anything from it, and such. They'll just say, you know what, forget it. This is just giving me too much pain.
Yep. And we got to remember that there are multiple kinds of pain as well. You have your, there's disappointment, there's frustration, there's anger, there's all sorts of different pains, like different kinds of pains out there. And at the same time, there's different kinds of pleasures. Like, say you tie learning things to variety, or maybe you get like safety, comfort, security from learning new things. Or whatever it does, there's always like, you can paint pain and pleasure different things. In fact, in one of my favorite writing guides, Story by Robert McKee, it talks about how in every scene there are only two values, pleasure and pain. And if you're writing a story and the scene ends in pain, there's multiple kinds of pain. There's embarrassment kind of pain, where the scene, there's a classic scene from, I think it was A Fish Called Wanda, where one of the characters strips down to the nude and says, "I'm finally socially free," and then this door opens and the entire guy's family's on the other side.
Yeah, I saw that scene. I remember that scene you're talking about. He was talking about being socially. Yeah, go on.
Yep.
Yeah, he was wrong, wasn't he?
Or
yeah,
there's
he actually.
Go on, Captain Face.
Yeah, he was really surprised at that. Heck, there were kids in that family. And by the way, the person playing this role was John Cleese.
Even better.
Yeah, so you can remember the reaction of what would happen if you discovered that.
Yep. There's another example. One of my personal examples comes from this old Donald Duck cartoon, where Donald Duck is trying to wash windows, and he's getting Pluto to give him some washing equipment, but then Pluto accidentally sends up a bucket of bolts. So when Donald Duck grabs the bucket of bolts, which he thinks is a bucket of water, he sloshes it towards the window, and a bunch of bolts fly through and break it.
Oh, wow. That sounds amazing.
Yep, that's another example of pain. There are many
funny.
shades of pain. At the same time, there are many shades of pleasure. Like,
Can I pull up an example?
Sure thing.
One of my favorite examples of this is often seen in the Homestar Runner cartoons. Like, in Strong Bad Email Do-Over, he's trying to redo an email, and he's calling for the cheat, only instead to find Homestar Runner dressed up as the cheat. And in this email, it was one where he felt sorry for kicking his little companion, the cheat. And when he finds out it's Homestar instead, he acts like, "Oh, no way! This does not count! You are not getting anything out of me!" And then he starts hitting Homestar with his keyboard, expecting to resolve it, only to find StrongMad thinks Homestar is the cheat, and StrongMad starts beating StrongBad up.
I'm so the cheat. Moo. Okay, the cheat is not a cow. The cheat is so a cow. You're making a very terrible stank. But anyway, let's see. That's another example of a negative turning point, but a positive turning point. There's many shades of pleasure as well. Like, let's see. What is a good example? Oh yeah. Let's see. Star Wars is a fairly common film. Let's see. There's, I guess, the low-key example of, let's see. I'm trying to think of a low-key example. Oh, yeah. When Luke Skywalker gets rescued by Obi-Wan Kenobi and then learns that he is, like, Ben Kenobi is the real Obi-Wan Kenobi, or what else? Oh, yeah. The climax of Star Wars is the classic example of a great turning point, where all of his teammates have died. He's the last one. He uses the Force, fires a shot into the Death Star, blows up the whole thing, and there's a huge sigh of relief at the end. That's another example. That's like one of like an ecstatic thing. But in stories, we tend to have a lot of painful story beats. Or Interstellar. Interstellar has an amazing positive story beat. Does anyone mind spoilers for this?
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
see the movie, so...
Go ahead,
All right, there's a great negative turning point where they go to this one planet they think is a possible hospitable planet. The story is, in Interstellar, Earth is on its last leg, and this team of astronauts has to go out to this other universe through a wormhole to find a habitable planet, but they only have enough fuel to go to 3 planets. They visit one, it's not good, they're on the second one, and there's already an astronaut down there, but he's gone stir-crazy and wants to use their ship for fuel. But the problem is, the ship's locked him out, and if he gets in, it's going to blow up the ship. And they're contacting the guy, they're trying, like, the scene starts out, they finally got into space, they caught up to the guy, we're on a positive turning point, we got the pleasure thing. But then they go through space, they catch up to the guy, they're like, do not make contact with the station. And the guy's like, shut up, I know what I'm doing. There comes a time in every man's life when the ship explodes, the station explodes. And when I saw the slide, the entire audience was like, oh crap. Like everyone gasped. A huge negative turning point. And when people saw that, like, and of course the characters were freaking out too, because now their ship was like half exploded. But then the main character is all like the ship's spinning out of control, it's about to spiral back into the planet. But then the main character is like, you know what? We have to dock with this thing. Fly in, let's get a nice spin. And the other pilot's like, that's impossible. And the other guy's like, it's not impossible, it's necessary. And the music starts building, they go into a spin. And finally they dock with the thing, they get on board, they fly it out of orbit. And that is a huge sigh of relief for both the characters and everyone in the audience that was applauding for them.
Off-topic fact, if I may mention, real stunts like that have been done in the Apollo missions.
Yep.
What? What's the Apollo mission?
Indeed so.
Yeah, they have.
What's the Apollo missions?
You'll find out.
Like whenever they set the
We'll find out.
models up until like the moon.
Eventually everyone finds out, but now's not the time.
But yes, there's many different shades of pain and pleasure, but the problem is, in real life, we don't get to see what our actions are going to lead to. In stories, we can tell where they're going to lead, but the problem is, in real life, if we were in that same situation where we saw the space station exploding, a lot of us would just give up right then and there because we link too much pain to trying to dock with the station. Whereas you have a real hero that goes in and tries to dock with it anyway. Or even better, what he does later with the black hole and everything.
Oh boy.
Oh my gosh, that would make me shit my pants.
Yep.
Pardon my language.
We agreed to this. Yep, we agreed. All 90%.
All 90% of us. Forget the other 10%.
Oh yeah, that's a reference to an earlier scene because there's an onboard AI that has a honesty level of 90%. And the main character asks, well, why don't you have 100%? And the AI goes, well, there's a lot of rude things that I'd be saying if I was at 100%, so it's best to keep that at that 10% there.
It actually does kind of make sense.
Well,
the robot even acknowledges humans aren't necessarily the most trustworthy things, so we can't necessarily be trustworthy either.
Captain, that is true. We are not all trustworthy.
Let's see.
Of course, you gotta build trust.
Yes.
Not built overnight.
Rome doesn't get built in a day.
Now, let's see. I have a mind map somewhere that actually has a list of everything, but what we tie pain and pleasure to determines every single one of our behaviors. We actually did a Unleash the Hermit Within a while ago where we talked about the 6 human needs and all of our different values, and our top needs are going to determine how we act, why we do, what we want to become in life, etc., etc. Like if someone's top needs were I mentioned this earlier, it's an idea based on something by Tony Robbins. It's the 6 human needs are for certainty, to know that our actions will get the, how do I describe certainty again? In fact, this is an example of uncertainty. Certainty is just knowing what's going to work. Like if you were to go to your doorknob and suddenly the door were to open to an alternate universe, would you freak out?
We all know the
Probably.
answer to that.
Yeah, if I wasn't expecting it,
Yep.
then yeah.
Because you'd lose certainty and you'd freak out. Or, oh, here's my classic example. Would you be watching this, to the people on YouTube, would you be watching this video if you knew that at 24 minutes and 40 seconds, a virus would infect your computer? Okay.
No, but
Hey,
Why would a
Spaz,
virus-
I
Why would a
have-
virus infect my computer from watching a video?
have certainty over this situation because I know how to deal with a virus. Unplug the modem and then get rid of anything bad on there.
And there you go. That's certainty for you. And sometimes you can get certainty in all number of ways. You can have faith, you can have knowledge, but there's also negative ways where you just repeat the same routine over and over again. If your top need is for certainty, then chances are you're going to want to keep your life the same way it's always been. And when your top need is for certainty, then it's really going to get in the way of changing things, especially if your current situation isn't ideal like it should be. Then the next need is for variety, because if you did the same thing over and over again, you would be bored. So you have variety where you have to face the unknown, and you can get this in a number of ways, like playing games where the outcomes always vary. You can do sports, extreme sports like indoor skydiving, skateboarding. Let's see. Any variety of gaming can do. Talking to people, conversations can always go anywhere. Watching good theater, watching movies you haven't seen before. There's a dichotomy between certainty and uncertainty. If you watch the same movie over and over again or listen to the same song over and over again, there's so much variety that it keeps changing over and over and over again, but at the same time, you have certainty that it's going to feel good. But the more you keep watching this movie or keep listening to that song, the certainty increases, but the uncertainty increases, and thus you get the boredom. And Captain Face says, great Spaz, now I'm thinking of us in Far Cry 3. Do you know the definition of insanity? It's doing the same shit over and over. And expecting a different result. Which is actually an Albert Einstein quote.
So we're basically all insane.
I don't do the same thing every day.
You
I'm
eat
guilty
every
of doing
day.
it once in a while.
So we have our dichotomy of certainty and uncertainty, but then we have Then we have significance and connection. Significance is your need for just feeling like your life matters, like you have an impact on the world. It's the reason why people want statues of themselves, or they want to put their name in front of everything. They're like, I made this. They call for attention. And there's many ways to get significance. You can do it negatively, where you have this big problem and you go around saying, look at how big my problem is. Or you can gain it in neutral ways, where you maybe help. Oh, here's a positive way, helping more people than anyone else. I guess a neutral way would be you have more titles in your name, like doctor, PhD, master's degrees. You can have more credentials than everyone else. And some people will be like, you know what, that's totally vain and vanity and selfish. I'm going to be totally selfless and totally care about other people beyond myself. Well, why would you say that unless you want people to know that you're so selfless? So ironically, by making a big deal about it, that's your way of gaining significance.
Indeed. Being absolutely selfless is also a very impossible task because humans are naturally selfish in some way, shape, or form. Some more than others, though.
Yep, which is what we'll learn with growth and contribution. But another thing to worry about, like I said, with certainty, you'll always want your life to be the same. But with significance, you'll always want to be better or different from other people. And significance is another one of those dangerous needs wherein if your only goal is to get attention, then you're going to live a life where you always want to be in the spotlight. But sometimes people do that in a way that hurts other people. One of my favorite proverbs is, there are two ways to make the tallest building in town. You can build it through hard work and honesty and integrity, or you can just tear down everyone else's building. And when your only need is for significance, then chances are you'll likely tear down everyone else's building. And if your top two needs are significance and certainty, then you're just going to want things to stay the same, but you're going to want people to pay attention for you not going anywhere. And as a result of that toxic way of thinking, that's where people use their problems to gain significance. but they don't want to do anything about it, because if they did anything, it would be uncertainty, and it would mean they would lose significance and feel insignificant.
And thus they would actually have to do something in order to gain all those things back.
Exactly. And then we have the opposite of significance, whereas we have total uniqueness with significance. We have connection, our need to relate to others, to be a part of the human race, where we can relate to others, talk to others, like find rapport, find commonality, say, you know what, I'm just like you, you're just like me, and connect with other people. Now, some people only settle for this, but it goes deeper into love and all that good stuff. I've been saying all that good stuff a lot lately. I also need to talk about habits. The more you do something, the better you get at it. Like, every single habit that you have is actually a physical connection in the brain. The more you do something, the more physical lines need to be carved in the brain. There's a book by Daniel Coyle, The Talent Code, that actually has like a lot of scientific research about this. But going back to connection and love, there are many ways to gain connection and love. The negative way is, of course, to have this big problem and you can connect with others and talk about their problems. Another classic example is people they ask each other, hey, how's your day going? Terrible. Well, let's see. Why is it so terrible? Woke up. I know how you feel. Whereas if you go up to someone and say, how are you? I feel great! Lock that guy in the loony bin. And of course, there are many positive ways to gain connection, which is, of course, making friends with others, being nice to others. That's talking to others. It's very simple. And if you're socially anxious, it might be hard at first, but once you start learning it, it gets easier and easier. Of course, there are some people who gain connection by listening to music and feeling connected to the artist and like saying, you know what, these lyrics really speak to me. Or they see a good painting and they're like, man, I can really connect with this. Or maybe they're just getting out in nature and like connecting with nature, or connecting with God, whatever works. But then we have the everyone needs to meet these first four needs, or else they wouldn't be here listening to this to me talk. But then you have the last two needs, which are for growth and contribution. Growth is to take care of yourself and to grow, and contribution is to take care of others. Because what does not grow dies. It's a law of nature. Once a plant reaches its full growth, it's done. And if something doesn't contribute, then it gets eliminated. Like if you look at any sort of like animal that, like I said, a penguin can't survive in the desert, a leopard can't survive in Antarctica. So you gotta be constantly growing, which goes back to that thing we mentioned earlier with the whole, let's see, what was it? It was about people needing to, oh yeah, this said that people are naturally selfish, and there lies the problem in that if we try to give ourselves to others, just keep giving, we have none for ourselves. It's the classic example of how there are so many celebrities out there who love to entertain everyone else, but they don't have any connection, they don't have anything for themselves, and they're up dying alone and depressed and stuff. And there are too many examples to count.
Oh, yes.
So we got to remember to take care of ourselves without stomping on others, and we got to remember to take care of others without bleeding out ourselves. And as a, in fact, that's a very good guide to ethics. It's take care of yourself, but not at the expense of others, and take care of others, not at the expense of yourself. That way, you don't hurt other people, and you don't hurt yourself.
Indeed.
Now, what this all has to do with goal setting is, a lot of people don't attain their goals because, well, a lot of this gets in the way. Like, let's say your goal was, let's say you really admired racing. Like stock car racing, NASCAR, you want to be a racer. But let's say your top value was safety and security. And your bottom negative value was, let's say, rejection. Oh, yeah, rejection. Because in order to get into sports, you have to get rejected by all the different leagues and sponsors and all the different things that go into, you have to climb the ladder to really get into stock car racing. If I'm not mistaken, is that right? Anyone here into stock car racing?
I'm not into it, but I'm sure that's how it goes.
Okay, but if your biggest value was security, then stock car racing is a very dangerous sport because you're driving this car at several hundred miles an hour, and the chances of skidding out, of getting killed, are very, very high. So if someone's goal was to become the greatest racer ever, but they valued security, and at the same time they wouldn't want to go through the rejection of going up the ladder, of having to try out so many times, of having to get sponsors, and having like so many rivalries with other racers, then they wouldn't, they would never make it because they never take the action to do anything. Now, let's see. Give me another example of what would be a goal. Just give me any goal.
Let's see.
Animate better.
Finishing an art project.
Okay, let's see. Finishing
Just
an art
about
project
to
and...
say something like that.
What was that, Toshi? You said something earlier?
To improve on your animation.
Okay. So we have 2 art projects, it looks like. Captain Face?
I was going to say getting my Waffles Course Autism Spectrum Disorder series done.
Okay, all these sound like creative projects, so I could probably...
Basically getting something done.
Okay, I can lump all these creative projects into a group of just making a creative project. So let's say that you wanted to finish a creative project, be it a video, a comic series, or even just drawn art, but your top value was, let's see. Your top value was variety, and your bottom value was, I guess, uncomfortability, impatience, and you were easily distracted. If your top value went against sitting down and drawing something, and your bottom value got you away from anything that was monotonous, then chances are you probably wouldn't follow through on that project, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, that actually sounds rather right, yeah.
But in the opposite direction, let's say your top value was patience or self-control or focus, and your bottom value was, let's see, and your bottom value was disappointment or letting yourself go. So your top habit was, if you felt that the job was undone, you would find a way to get that job done. Now, do you think it would be much easier to focus with that kind of mindset?
Very much so.
Oh, yeah.
And there you go. But the question is, how do we train this kind of mindset? Well, the first thing you have to do is know where your current values stand. And then know what kind of values that you're going to need to train into in order to get that. So this is kind of unexpected. I didn't do this for the afternoon course, so let's do it here. I want you to open up a notepad file, Word file, something along those lines to where you can easily write down a list of things. And and here's a good example. Actually, let's see. I have an example list somewhere around here. But I'm going to ask you to write down examples of your top positive values and your top negative values. The values that you're trying to go for and the values that you're trying to avoid. So let's see. Where did I put that list?
Well, if it makes you feel any better, Spaz, as we are speaking, I'm working on projects that are necessary for my goals.
Same, actually.
All right, that'll work. In fact, if any of you need to work on your projects while listening to this, I highly encourage you to, because I will upload the recording later, so if you need to... In fact, that's the ultimate irony there. If you have to skip out on your projects to go to a project management course...
Then what's the point? Like, it's not getting you anywhere.
Yep. Because the problem
Well,
is
it
out
does
there...
teach you. It does teach you some lessons. So I recommend that you just work on your projects while listening, if that's the case for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's sometimes what I do. I'll actually listen to audiobooks while I'm jogging in the morning, or even while I'm animating while I'm not on stream. But going to an example here. Here are some examples of the most common values. We have things like love, success, freedom, intimacy, security, adventure, power, passion, comfort, health. Now, who here values all of these things? Say aye.
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 But who values one of these more than the others?
Aye.
Because I guarantee you
it's
one
possible,
of the...
but
Because chances are you can probably rank them in different orders. And then at the same time, they're the most common negative values are things like rejection, anger, frustration, loneliness, depression, failure, humiliation,
Stress.
guilt. And of course, who here fears all of these values? Say aye.
Aye.
Oh yes, I.
But at the same time, don't we have one that's much more significant than the others? You can put stress on there too, but again, stress is kind of like a synonym for fear. And one of these, a good example is, let's say, oh, I'm a little stressed about work. Okay, why are you stressed out? Well, I got this big project I got to finish. Okay, well, what if you don't finish the project? Well, then everything will fall apart and I'm going to disappoint everyone. And what happens if you disappoint everyone? Then they're all going to reject me and I won't be loved. So the value there that's stressing you out is the fear of rejection. Or some people will say, oh, if I don't finish this project, then even though everyone else cares about me, I'm going to feel like a failure. So the thing that they're stressed about is the fear of failure. Because when you think about it, fear is a verb. It's the fear of what you need to question about. And funny enough, I actually mentioned this to the actual Tony Robbins himself, and he even told me personally, well, fear of what? There are so many different values that you can fear. So, for the next, let's see. For the next, how many minutes? Let's say 5 minutes. For the next 5 minutes, I want you to write down what are your top positive values. If you can't think of anything, think of what's the one thing that you want to get in life and ask, why do you want it? Because chances are, if you think, what was that?
before I do, that kind of reminds me of something I did in my freshman year of college. I took this thing called Aggie Access, and they were trying to identify like your most positive values, and they used this thing called Strengths Quest. And they listed what would be considerably my positive values. Do you mind if I use that?
You can. There's multiple ways to do it. But I would say, like, for the purposes of this exercise, go with the heart instead of the head. Just go with whatever comes naturally. And again, think of your goals and ask, why do you want the goal? Like, if your goal is, I want to get into a relationship with the girl or guy of my dreams, and you say, okay, why? And you could say, oh, because I want someone to love me unconditionally. And if you're that, then your value would be love. Or maybe it's something a little more complex than that, like, oh, then I'll feel like I fit in with everyone else. Because I'll tell you that was one of my original reasons for wanting a relationship, so I could feel like everyone else. So it would be acceptance, success would be one of them. Or if you wanted to finish a project, it would be I want to contribute to others. Then a sense of contribution would be that. Whatever that value is, write it down. So I will give you guys 5 minutes, starting in 3, 2, 1, go. And I'll be right back as you write this down.
I hope the people on YouTube decide to do this as well.
Oh yes, big time. If you're watching this video on YouTube, as the song goes on, just think of all the different things you want in life. Like, what do you personally go towards? What is your top value? Think about it. Again, I mentioned earlier, we have values like success, love, acceptance. Rewind this video if you have to look that list over. Actually, before I go AFK for a second, I'm going to reread that list. Common positive values are love, success, freedom, intimacy, security, adventure, power, passion, comfort, health. In fact, the thing that grew me in 2011 was my top values I wanted to achieve were fun and happiness, passion, growth, courage, risk-taking, creativity, focus, understanding, faith, emotional control, outgoingness.
Definitely things worth getting.
Right now, mine is independence and also an environment where I can do what I want. My goal, one of those might happen soon, hopefully.
Yes. One more thing before I go real quick. Don't list the ideal list. List what you currently have right now. Like, what has the life you've been, like, with the life you've been living, what are your values right now? You'll do the ideal list in a second. Anyway, be right back.
Okay.
Alright.
All eyes away. Anybody willing to share what those are right now publicly with everyone?
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea, if only due to the fact that we don't have the luxury of rewinding a live real-time stream.
Yeah.
So far, I can only think of 3 ones, but I got my strengths quest list. I put down pretty much loyalty, consistency, and empathy.
I only have one,
Let's
which
see.
is I wrote successful.
Right now,
And,
for me, it's health and energy.
I only have successful
see.
in parentheses in a creative direction.
I'm writing out a rough list of things, and then I'll be organizing it. I am struggling to remember what Spazzik said in terms of like all of the virtues you could list down, but of course there are certain needs here. Let's see.
Although I have trouble accepting it once in a while myself, I put down the meaning of context. And this is what my strengths was. It's basically people who are talented with context enjoy thinking about the past. They understand the present by researching what happened before them. Let me guess, that didn't make sense to anyone.
No, I can understand what you mean. Guess that's another thing I can put down is understanding. Alright, let's see here.
Alright, I'm back. Now let's see how much time we have left. We have about a minute left.
Writing out a rough list at the moment, haven't gotten to organize it yet.
That's okay, it does need to be organized, it doesn't need to be numbered. That will come later.
Maybe that's fine then.
Yep. The idea here is just list all the different values that you value, but then you can whittle down the list next.
Okie dokie.
Alright, and that's time. Let's see. Who here got more than... let's see. Who here got at least 5? Say aye.
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 Oh, wait. Never mind. The new one.
Alright, who here got at least 10? Say aye.
Aye.
Alright, excellent. Diz, how many did you write down?
11.
Perfect. Now, the idea is, once we start getting to these goals, save this list for now, but when you actually get to the actual goal-setting workshop, or we can do this exercise some other time. In fact, I have a written version down somewhere on one of my guides, but once you look at all the goals that you would like to accomplish for 2015, you can rearrange this list in what kind of order you would ideally have these things in. And to practice this, here's how it works. You would file this as a personal development goal to start building the value that you need to start attaining your goals. And when we actually get to the goal list, you'll realize that in order to attain some of your goals, you'll have to adopt a new mindset. But to adopt your new mindset, you have to build new habits. Like, let's say that comfort was your top habit, but you had a goal that required doing some very uncomfortable things. Like for me, comfort was a big value of mine, but I had to go against my conditioning for that and start training in uncomfortable conditions in order to get better at that. So I can exercise in even the most extreme conditions. But to handle that endurance, you have to be able to train yourself. You have to train that value and that habit every single day. And as we'll learn in the actual goal setting workshop itself, you have to set all these different action items, which are the different things you can do daily to improve that habit. Example for me is I will... it's been very cold and very rainy down here in Texas in the last couple of weeks, but one of my goals is to exercise every single day. And there's been a little slump when I couldn't exercise because I still had that habit of wanting to be comfortable. So, in freezing cold temperatures, I walked outside in a short-sleeved shirt and jogged for 30 minutes. Now, I wouldn't recommend anyone else do this because this is actually quite dangerous. In fact, if you were to do that, I would say don't go any further than your house. But you have to be able to train that daily to survive and endure in uncomfortable situations if you want to build that habit of toughing through tough situations. Does that make sense, folks?
Yes.
Yep.
But also at the same time, you can always exercise inside by pacing back and forth in a room.
There is that, but I don't want to atrophy back into the getting too comfortable habit, and that's why I want to train in extreme conditions. Another example is back in my early development, I wanted to train having fun with more things. Because back then, I mainly had fun just to cure my depression, and instead I wanted to have fun to, like, as just a way of life. So I found the fun in a lot of seemingly boring things and got better and better at it. And these, like, if people meet me in real life, they know that I have this very goofy, bouncy personality. Like, Joe, you remember, like, when I was at A-Kon and everything, right?
Yeah.
I saw the video, so I could tell.
Oh, yes, but there's a lot of stuff that happened off-screen, like when we met with the Toho fans, and, like... And, of course...
Watching him get photos of him with some of the other people cosplaying as, like, Yukari and such was actually pretty entertaining.
Oh, yeah, that was fun on that first day. And I still have that picture as my Skype profile pic.
Yukari choking you.
Yes. And then there's the famous gravity gun one. My goodness, I love that picture.
Oh, yeah,
That's
same.
cool.
And then lady looking at me out the corner.
But yeah,
All
I
right.
know. Go on.
Yes, this?
Yeah, let's go on. I wasn't gonna say anything.
Oh, okay. But I was going to say, I didn't used to be like that. I used to be a very, very cold person. And sometimes shows, I guess that's the homeostasis, but I prime that goofiness on a either daily or weekly basis. And if I start losing it, I got to remember, this is who I am, this is what I stand for. I am this bubbly, goofy guy at the end of the day. But it's got to be trained. And if you don't train it, then it atrophies. So when it comes to your goal list, you're going to have to know, what's the value that I need to train to attain everything else on my list? So now that we've covered the basics, let's actually, I'm going to stop part 1 of this right here, the recording right here, and then I'm going to move into part 2 of the list, part 2, which is actually how this goal setting exercise is going to work. So I'm going to stop part 1 here, and I'll see you in the next part if you're watching this on YouTube. So see you then.